again, and this time we are with a special guest, and he goes by the name of Peter Buckley. And Peter will be telling us his story about his time in jail and his life growing up in the East End and how he come to Jesus Christ. So, Pete, if you tell us a bit about yourself and your background, go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Peter Buckley. I'm 49 years old. I'm from East London, and it's a privilege to be here today and to give my testimony to Rough Edges. And yeah, so my story is, from the beginning, I was always a frightened child. I always felt quite fearful, not frightened of the outside, but more frightened of how I felt. I was disturbed with the way that I felt as a child. I was an anxious child. I was rebellious. I found myself always getting in trouble. I was always attracted to the bad kids, and the naughty kids and the good kids as well. Sometimes, I'd be with the bad kids. Sometimes I'd be with the good kids. I was never consistent. I didn't know consistency growing up. I didn't come from a consistent household, in a sense, emotionally. But yeah, I was always a happy child as well. I loved playing out and stuff like that. I had a sister 11 months older than me, and a little brother at the time, Ricky, who was 5 years younger. And we was close. We lived near Wanstead Flats, which is in Forest Gate, a beautiful open bit of green. I spent a lot of my childhood over there, lighting fires, or riding my motorbike over there and stuff like that. But that was just how I grew up. Was just it was just the way that it was then. You had a lot of the subcultures then in Forest Gate. You had the skinhead movement. You had the the casuals. You had the mods. You had the rasters. It was just a mix of music. It was beautiful in that sense. I grew up loving music. I still do today. It was, I love living in Forest Gate. It was an absolute wonderful place to live. We all had the same thing. Not many cars on the street. And everyone, when I went to friends' houses, we all had the same food in the cupboards and in the fridge and stuff like that. So you never kind of felt that anyone, even like I had kids, maybe parents had better, but we all had the same sort of house, and I never felt inferior growing up. My mum went to work; she's always worked, and she was a single parent at the time, and we always had a nice home, nice clothes and stuff like that. So I never grew up wanting for things materialistically, and I still don't today, to be honest. I'm not a materialistic person. But yeah, just growing up was difficult for me, and being in there was no role model around, there was no dad around and stuff like that. So I'd play outside a lot, and I wouldn't spend much time indoors, and it was a difficult. My mum was young; she had me young, and my sister, and it was difficult. She tried to do her best, tried to discipline me and stuff like that. I rebelled against any form of authority. I come from a big family. There's a lot of us. My mum's got a lot of sisters and brothers, and that side of the family's is just getting bigger today, to be honest. Babies being born all the time and stuff like that. It's beautiful. My youngest cousin's Alana, she's 16, and my oldest cousin's in his 50s. So, there's a lot of us. It's beautiful. We had a nan who was she was like the queen of our family, and she passed away when I was in Maidstone prison about 18 years ago, 17 years ago, and that broke my heart. I love my nan as all my cousins do, and her daughters, that was a sad time for the family. So I grew up loving, in and out of my aunt's houses, my nan, and my upbringing was happy, but it was also confusing. I was happiest when I was outside of the house. When I was indoors, I weren't very happy. I didn't have a mother-son relationship with my mum really, as I didn't with my dad. They'd split up when I was young, and my dad was living up in Cable Street, in Stepney. And growing up was just difficult. I didn't know how I felt. I was naughty at school, and I was stealing from a young age and stuff like that. I had a troubled upbringing, to be honest. Yeah.
And what was like your first experience of going to jail, and how did that start to happen when you was of a young age?
Yeah.
And what age was it?
Yeah. Well, I'd been in care when I was younger, and I've been in children's home and foster home, and then I went back with me and my sister, and then we went back to home, and then I went to prison at 16. I went to Feltham, and I went to a holding centre before that called Latchmere House, which was an absolute nightmare. There was me and my colleague Mickey. We were the only white boys. All the other boys were from all over, like Brixton, Peckham, stuff like that. We was fighting from the beginning, and at that time, I was game, but I was not a skilled fighter. I didn't know, I would stick up, I'd throw left and right, but I never had no. I weren't a winner then. I weren't confident in winning fight. I would just go in, and my Cody was not a fighter at all, and would not get involved in any fights. So I'd done, fighting for the pair of us, and it was I learnt a lot of lessons in that place, and on that sentence, and on that sentence I got moved to other prisons. I was up in Wales, in Swansea prison. I caused trouble there, and I was moved to Hollinsey Bay, and I'd caused trouble there. I was just moved about Feltham, Rochester, all the youth prisons, and I was getting kicked out of all of them. Dover, then I ended up in Aylesbury. I just kept getting moved about.
Was you quite well known around that time?
At that time, yeah. I was quite, I was quite a big lad. I was always training in the gym, and I'd always surround myself with guys who like training in prison. I'd always get gym orderly jobs and things like that, because I've always had an interest in fitness, so you're hanging around with guys who are fit. So you kind of. There's a lot. There's many worlds in this world, as and in prison there is, if I was shipped out to prisons and I was on my own, I'd have to fight because people never knew me, and then through that fighting and stuff like that, you got to know certain people, and it's a bit different now in the sense that you could go into prison years ago if you could have a fight. And, you was into your training and you was a game sort of fella, you could roll on your own. Do you know what I mean? Like years ago, you go into prison and people leave you alone. Whereas today, it don't matter how hard you are. If you're going into prison and you're trying to do it on your own, only particular. That's beautiful. Come on, baby. only certain people can do that.
Yeah.
Like if you're trying to roll on your own in prison, you can get stamped on. But there's only a few people I've ever met that can do that, and I'm one of them people. I go into prison and I train and I do my own thing, and I don't get involved in other people's nonsense.
I was going to ask about if the things you've seen in prison and the worst things. Sort of.
Yeah. So I've seen all things. I've seen murders in prison, stabbings. I've seen overdoses. I've seen people attacking people, trying to rip each other's face off. I've seen murders. I've seen attacks on Stark. I've seen Stark attacking prisoners. I've been on the end of that. I can remember when I was in Feltham years ago, and on my first sentence, and I was a kid, and I'd had a fight with, never forget this guy. I used to see him now and again in the prison system, a lad from Hackney, and he'd try to bully my mate Nicky, and I beat this fella up, what was I saying? I lost myself.
This guy was picking on your friend Mickey or something like that.
Yeah, why was I talking about
one of your
this
first time.
Right, yeah. So I beat this fella up and all that, and then the screws, as we call them, have jumped on me, and they've dragged me down to a strip cell. They call them a strip cell because they strip all your clothes off and that. They say it's not to say you've got no weapons, but it's not. It's to humiliate you. And they, it was bad then, especially them days. The Child Act hadn't come in then. So I was I was a kid, I was a child, and they dragged me into the cell. They ripped all my clothes off. They put me in a body belt, and I believed at that time that they was going to rape me. That's what I believed. A kid should not be thinking like that. Do you know, that's just like something's wrong now.
How old was you at this time?
I was 16 at the time, yeah. And you got 8 grown men in there with and they're ripping your clothes, like punching you, kicking you. I've experienced that, even as an adult. I remember being in Brixton, and I was on GOAD, which is good order and discipline. I'd actually been on GOAD for 9 months in Brixton, and I had absolute murders in there. I attacked a governor in there, a prison governor, because they were attacking me, and no one knew. Do you know, they even got, thinking that, this has just come back, they even got a pastor who I knew from my area to come down the block to see me, because in the end I'd had enough on that sentence. I'd had enough, and I was just, every time I opened the door I was attacking. And then you get your 2-man unlocks and stuff like that, they call it, or your 4-man unlocks. But there used to be, without exaggerating, there would be at least 15 officers there to unlock me, and a prison governor. And they was the governor now and again would give them the nod, and I'd see the nod, and they would just attack me. And I remember one time I got into the shower in the Brixton block there, and I got up in a corner, and that shower used to have a ledge, used to have a right high ledge, you used to have to step up, and it was right position on the left hand corner of this shower room, and it had a right high ledge, it was about 1.5 foot high, 2 foot high. And I remember getting in that shower, and they all came in at me, and I remember just getting in a corner, and I was just fighting for my life. And that's how, that was about 15 years ago. But I've seen, I've been out of prison now 3 years, so I've been seeing that all through my life. Some prisons love it, they want to have a fight with you, and some don't. There's good prisons, bad prisons, good officers and bad officers, just same as there is inmates. But prison weren't. It's not a nice place to be, if you think prisons, even the guys I've seen out here who can have, even the young uns, because I know the young uns now, through my boxing and my community start, I'm always about them, I always talk to youth, always. I start with you all right, boys. I never get, none of them ever bad mouth feet, they know the man in front of them, same as I've always known the man in front of me. And I've seen them all. I've seen them all. Some of them on the old YouTube on there, rapping. I've seen them in Chelmsford how they conduct themselves in other prisons. When they're in there, they're not how they are out here. Do you know what I mean? They're not. And how I was out here, I took in there. And there's not many guys in prison who do that.
Where do you think you got that mentality from?
You're fighting for your life. I've been fighting for my life since I was born. I was born ill. I was born I was going to die. I had double pneumonia, and I had bronchitis and double pneumonia. And I'm lucky to be here, from a child. And I've been, you hear this, but I tell you, I've been stabbed, shot, hit with hammers. I've had thumbs cut off. I've been stabbed all over my body. I've been stabbed in the neck. In the face, everywhere. and I'm still here. I'm still here. So I've always had to fight. And as I say, I've never been frightened of a man in front of me because I feared myself so much. I know what I'm capable of doing, to myself, and what I do to myself, I'll never do to another human being, but backed up in a corner, you do whatever it takes, because you're fighting for your life, and that's instinct. We have that. That's born within us. Every animal, his primary purpose is to survive, no matter what. And I had to survive all difficulties in life. Without the violence, I had to survive a lot of other stuff. And I have. The man sitting here today is not the man I was. And a lot of people knew me, and a lot of people say today, look how you are today, Pete. He's not the man I see. It's hard to believe. I've always had art, but I was never consistent in it.
Yeah, well, I was wondering if you're alright for talking about your last sentence and how you came to know, Jesus.
Yeah, my last sentence, I'm in prison, I'm facing the rest of my life in prison, I'm facing a life sentence.
How many years?
I was facing I was offered a 20-year, on a guilty plea, I was offered a 20-year tariff on a life sentence, which I'd have probably done 35 out of that. I was 80% innocent. I wasn't totally innocent, but I never done what they said that I did. And I'm in prison. I'm facing all this time, and I'm contemplating suicide. I'd made a noose up, and I put it over my neck 4 times at different days, and I'll take it off again. And when I put it on, I weren't crying, I weren't emotional. I was just like, nah. And I've done that 4 times, and I remember I'd called my sister up, Maxine, and she was my strongest advocate throughout my life. I've never really had consistent people around me, through fault of my own or anyone else, whatever. But my sister's kind of stayed there with me most of my life, visit me in different prisons and sending me money and clothes and coming to visit, all this stuff. And I rang her up and I said, Maxine, can you come and visit me? And I've never done that before. I've never asked for anyone to come and visit. And she came up and I said, Maxine, I can't do this. I can't. I've already done so many years in prison now. I ain't got it in me. I was 46 at the time. And you're looking at like a nearly 80-year-old man trying to come out and get his life together. I just thought, do you know what? A good life, bad life, whatever it was, I'm going to bail out of. And just leave it how it is. And then, I was sitting in this cell in Chelmsford, and a man come to my prison hatch one night. I've not long been at Chelmsford, and he said, "Can I come and have a chat with you?" His name's Peter Brown. He's a minister. He volunteers to come in to Chelmsford prison every Wednesday. He's been doing it for 10 years. When he come to see me, and I said, "Yeah, come in, Peter." And he came in, and we had a chat, and he started telling me things and. That I'd never heard before, about myself, that salvation and surrender and he was a beauty. He was an old man, with a bald head, and and it was just, I just loved this geezer. As soon as I met him, I don't know what it was, and he said, "Look, can I come and see you every week? I come in every Wednesday." I said, "Of course you can." And he'd come every Wednesday. We'd sit there and we'd talk, I had 2 trials at the time, one in Winchester, up that way, and then I had a trial in Essex and Chelmsford, Hampshire. So I said, I'm off to Winchester for this trial. It's a 4-month thing, so I probably ain't going to see you. I ain't going to see you again. He said, look, you're going to get found not guilty. You're going to come back here. And I'm going to introduce you to an organisation called Teen Challenge, a man's ministry, Christian-based ministry in Ilford. And he left the application form on the bed and he walked out. And I just thought, what a beautiful man. What a lovely man, but he's off his rocker.
Yeah.
I'm in a lot of trouble, but it gave me a little bit of hope. Mm-hmm. And I took that with me to Winchester and to face my trial. That's a story in itself. How I got freed from that. But having that at the time when I went to Winchester, there was riots going on in there, and there was lockdown, and no one could come out. It was absolute chaos. I've never known a prison like it. It was like the Wild West. And do you know what? Though I never filled it in, that application form gave me hope, and it worked. Everything he said, and by having that just there and just looking at it and thinking, wow, like, you know, I could go to it. And when it started becoming a reality, though I never filled this application form in at the time, I just thought, because I'd had another trial, so no matter what happened here, I still wasn't getting out of prison. And I was found not guilty. I came back to Essex to face a robbery charge, which I did do, and I was found not guilty of that. And
yeah. Because you were found not guilty, like, against all odds, wasn't it?
It was against, it was. I had two sets of legal team. I had the first set, and I'd removed them, and I've got another set of law defence team, and they were saying the same thing as the first one. So I sat to them and thought, I'm just going to go in on my own. Wish I did go, but I ain't got time to tell that story. Literally went in on my own, and I caused a big scene on that trial, and I was sentenced to 2 years for contempt of court and attacking my co-defendants. But I was released from that charge down to that happening.
Yeah, it was a godly moment.
It was a god moment. Yeah, it was brought up and I was to talk about it. So yeah, I'm in the trial, and there's the first day of trial, and I've turned up, and there's witnesses there, and the witnesses, his friends are there. My co-defendant, two co-defendants, I had police here, and then the co-defendant now, police here, co-defendant now, and I'd sat there, and I just looked around, and I thought, look, I'm fighting for my life here. Like, the odds were all against me. I'm looking at a horrendous prison sentence. Yeah, and I've got these two idiots. My sister even went to me, I don't know why you don't tell them the truth. I said, Maxine, the life I've lived, that's not even a possibility. I just no matter what, I would have done that sentence if I had to. If I'd have topped myself. But there's no way I'll try and wriggle out of it. If I did it, I didn't do it. I knew did it. I knew that don't matter. I've never ever mentioned another man's name to in that situation to anyone. And I can say that with my hand on my heart. Never, as God is my witness. I've never informed on anyone. And I was prepared to do that sentence. And I sat there and I looked around me and I looked at these two idiots like that, and I just thought. And I said to the police officers, I said, look, you better take me out the back there. I need to go and pray. And they looked at me like this. I went and I stood up. And I meant business. And I said, look, you better get me out of there. I was like, I'm going to go berserk. So they sent me out there, and I prayed like that, and God said to me, fight. I believe it was God, and all I heard was fight. And I've been a fighter all my life. I went back in that court. I went back in that court, so I sat down like that, and it was just one of them moments. I remember thinking, fight, and I just remember thinking it, and I just reacted on that thought, and I just went crack. And I hit him, the Cody on this side, and I went crack, and I hit the Cody on the other side, and it was like the police just left. They left. It was like looking back, it was in slow motion. It was like going, and everyone left the court. That's what it seemed like. It weren't. It was pandemonium. They ushered the judge out, and they got him out. And I'm going berserk in the and I went back to the. Eventually I went back to the held the trial. We'd gone back to the prisons, and the next day they come and got me to take me to prison, to the court. I've turned up at the court. There's no one there. The Codies have refused to leave their jails, whatever jails they were in. Have refused to leave. There's no witnesses turn up at the court. The prosecution's absolutely going ballistic because they'd spent a lot of money on this. And they weren't happy, but there was no one there. They'd tried to get them, they'd rung the people up, and they didn't want to know. They couldn't get hold of any of the witnesses. The Codies, they swore that they're not leaving the prisons, and I was there on my own, and the judge threw it out. Found no case to answer, threw it out, not guilty.
Wow.
Absolute, and I was innocent. If I was like, as God is my witness, I was innocent. The robbery charge, I put my hands to it as a separate charge in a separate court. And I was found not guilty of that, but for that, for what went on, in that situation, I knew what was going on around what was going on, but I was not a part of that. And that was a God moment for me,
Yeah. So from there, how did you get to know your faith a bit more? I guess
they moved me back to Chelmsford to face the other trial, and then the guy came back, Peter Brown came back, and I said, "Wow, terrific! Give him a hug and all that." And I said, "You was right. I was found not guilty." He said, "That's beautiful." He said, "Did you fill that application form in?" And I said, "Well, no." He said, "Why not?" And I said, "Because I've still got this other trial to face." So I was looking at about 12 years for the other charge, And he said, "Just fill it in, just fill it in anyway." And I filled it in. And as I say, I was found not guilty, but I had to serve the 2 years for the contempt of court. And I was laying on my bed one day. This was my moment, and I had a few pairs of trainers all clean in the line, as a lot of the lads do in the jail and that, And I was laying on my bed, like that, watching telly like that. And I'd noticed every now and again I kept clocking my trainers. I kept looking at my trainers, and then my shoulders would go like that. And I'll go back to watching telly. And I'd done it one night. I must have been doing it a lot. But I'd done it one night, and I just sat up and I thought, really? Like this is what your life's about. I was getting gratification from dirty old trainers. And I bagged all my clothes up, and the next morning I threw them all in, and I threw them out of my cell. I kept a pair for running around the yard, and that was the pride and the ego was going in. It sounds so silly, but from that little act, I started dropping because I used to walk around like, full of fear, quick to react to anything, just to change the way that I felt. I didn't like how I felt. I was confused by how I felt because I was never consistent. When I was feeling good for a while, that was lovely, but then when I was feeling bad, it was horrible. I just wanted to be consistent. I wanted to stop sinning, and this man had told me, Peter, I said, "Peter, how do I stop sinning?" Still in full action and doing. And he went, "Well, keep loving." I said, "What do you mean?" He went, "The more you love, the less you sin." And that's what I learned. I learned to love myself, learned to love others. My life just, my life's fantastic. I'm going to be a dad. I'm 49, and I'm going to be a dad on Boxing Day of all days.
Yeah.
Do you know? I went to see the baby, the scan yesterday, and he's got his little hands in the belly like that. And me, I love boxing. That's my life. I do it. As you know, with your dad Tom as well. What a beautiful man. And it's just God's giving me everything. I've always wanted to be a dad. I never thought I'd be a dad. I never thought. There was times, the enemy had me so wrapped up. He'd tell me, you're never gonna have kids. You can't have them, and this and that. And I've just found a lovely, beautiful woman, and we're gonna have a child. Her first child, my first child. And 3 years ago, I was in that cell. 5 years ago, I was in a position where it was just my life was just coming to an end. I'm lucky by the grace of God. I sit here today in glory, in His power and in His glory. And I'm not a Bible basher. I'm not religious. I just love Jesus. Everything is about Him. I invite Him everywhere, whatever I'm doing. The greatest gift I've ever been given by my faith is I no longer talk to myself. What a relief. When you spend so many years battering yourself, to actually hear yourself talking to yourself with love, and just courage to be obedient to change. It's easy to say, you know what, I'm going to change my life. I've done it in prison all the time. I'm going to change my life. When I come out, I'm going to do a bit of youth work because I love the youth. I'm going to do a bit of youth work, but I wouldn't. I'd get fit in prison. I'd get the ego and the pride. I'd come out and I'd travel all around the coastal towns fighting. Doing prize fighting, and then I'd get involved in enforcing and drug collecting and all this sort of nonsense. And I was just a liability and a time bomb. I was like a pressure cooker until I found Jesus. I was like a pressure cooker. waiting to explode. Like literally to explode. And an explosion would have been death. That would have been the Big Bang crash. It's done. Lights out.
So from there, was it smooth sailing? How's your life been since you made that change?
Since I made that change, it's difficult in the beginning. So when I left prison, you know, I was found not guilty for the robbery charge. I filled the application form in, and then I came out and I had to wait. You know, I came out, I was homeless, and I had to wait to try and get into Teen Challenge. They kind of hurried it up and got me in a bit quicker. That was a beautiful place in itself. It's a Christian-based ministry, quite radical. You know, it's not for the weak-hearted. You know, you've got to be a stronger person. A bit like the army, like, you know what it must be. I've never done it, but to join the Marines or something. There's a lot of that going on. You know, I've done that out of love. So I stayed there for 8 months, and I thought, yeah, you know, I've got God now. My life's going to be so beautiful. And then I went and lived in Brentwood, and within 3 weeks, I was drinking alcohol again. I'd always had a problem on and off with alcohol and drugs. And yeah, you know, I was drinking 2 litres of vodka a day, a case of beer, and a pork pie. That was my daily intake. And for about 3 weeks, and it was horrible. And a beautiful man, a good friend from Teen Challenge, David Brooker, came and picked me up and took me out of there. When he first come, I was laying on the settee in the end, and I was thinking, what is going? You know, it was terrible. I felt absolutely terrible. And I said, Lord, please bring someone here. No one knew I lived there. I said, please bring someone. Please get me out of here. And the next morning, there was a knock on the door, and I looked out the window, and it was a friend from Teen Challenge, a guy who worked there, Dave. And I looked out, and I see his car, and I thought, God, I don't want him to see me like that. I had a beard, I weren't showering, you know, I was just drinking myself to death in that room. And I watched him drive up, and I thought, what have you done? Pride again, see? You know, this man knew the score. You know, he didn't expect to come round and I'm there, you know, clean shaven and with a suit on. You know, he knew I was in a bad way. And he went, and I thought, and I remember that rest of that day and that night thinking, I've just let slip the only hope that I had left, you know, of rescue. And by the grace of God, you know, I prayed again. I said, Lord, just send him. And he came back the next day, and I looked out. I'd heard the knocking on the door, and I looked out. I see his car, and I ran down them stairs. I opened the door, and I monkey hugged him. And he went, just get whatever you need, just go. And it was just by the coincidence, you know, God was all in it, that his wife had gone to America for. They lived in a 1-bedroom flat in Woodford, and you know, it wouldn't have been possible for me to be there with him and his wife. You know, they're in the 60s, and yeah, so she'd gone to America to see her family, and I stayed there, and he got me into a Christian mission, Tower Hamlets mission, and I went, you know, I'm still there at the minute. I'm going to be leaving next week, and I've been there 2 years, and they've just guided me through the rest of you know, they've just, you know, by the grace of God, I've been consistent in how I feel today with the Lord. I love Jesus with all my heart and soul, always have done. I had a divine intervention when I was 4. My first conscious memory was a vision of Christ, and then absolute terror. You know, because I'd woken up to the world. That's my first conscious memory. Absolute terror, frightened, and that stayed with me until I got saved. Until I gave my life to Jesus, that fear has stayed with me always. And it's not a fear with, oh, I'm scared of, like, you know, when I feel that internally, I act on it. You know, I don't shy away from it. You know, I'll run at it. And you know, it put me in hospitals. It put me in a lot of bad situations. You know, by acting like that.
I was going to ask if you had any other like divine intervention.
I've had loads throughout my life because I've always believed in Jesus, so there's been loads. And I'll mention one of them, most important one. It was years ago, and It was in Canning Town. It was in Custom House. I was living there at the time. I had a flat over there, and I'd come out, and it was one day. It was a build up of things. It was a lot of build up of things, and then one day I've come out, and it was painful to even talk about this because it's absolutely horrendous. Now, I love children, always have done. There's a lot of children in my family, nieces, nephews, cousins, my friends' kids, and I've always been known for this. I'm a strong advocate for youth. In prisons, I look out for the youngsters. When I'm out here, I'll go in my community. If I see them messing around, I'll go and have a chat with them. I meet them where they're at. I'm not an authority figure. I meet them where they're at, and I've been blessed with that love. From the Lord when he revealed himself to me at such a young age, and I'm going to be a dad myself. How beautiful is that? And that's by the grace of God. But yeah, a baby was thrown from a window, a little girl, from 3 floors up, and I'd heard all I heard. I was walking down the road and I'd heard a word, catch. That's what I heard in my head, like I heard in that courtroom fight. Yeah, I heard a word just as strong as that, catch, and I went like that, and there was a little baby girl in my hands, a little tiny little thing, and I looked at her and she weren't breathing. Yeah, and I'm no doctor, and I didn't know this, but you breathe up the nostril, and straight away I went like that. I see she weren't breathing, and I shook her, and I started breathing up the nostril. And then her little eyes opened, and I looked at her and I just thought, wow, man, I loved her straight away. And I remember I knocked on someone's door, a girl I knew, and I knocked on there and I said, look, I told her what happened, look, deal with this. And I sat there before the ambulance come and all that, before she got involved with all the services people, I was off. And I sat there and I just looked at her, and I remember she'd say this to you. I sat there and I said, I just want to keep her. Little tiny little baby, just been born and Bella called. And I went to prison. I went to Maidstone for I went for a lot of years. I went to Maidstone for a robbery charge, and through that sentence, it troubled me, and I wondered what would happen and what went on there and what was all that about, and if she was all right. And when I came out, first thing I did was go and find out about, so I went to that girl. I knocked on her door and said what had happened. And what had happened is it was a 12-year-old girl. The mum was 12. There was an Asian family. The father still lives there today, on Brisbane Road in Custom House, and the uncle had abused the niece. And she'd been going to school. Didn't know. I don't know. This is what I've heard, but she didn't know she was pregnant. That morning that I happened to come past, the dad, she was in the bathroom, had give birth. She was in the bathroom. The dad was knocking on the door. Because he wanted to go use the toilet. She's panicked and thrown the baby out the window. A 12-year-old girl, imagine that, Yeah. Oh. But God chose me to be there at that time. At that time, and I've only shared with you about blowing up her nose because I never wanted. Because before coming to the Lord, I never would admit that. When I used to tell people about that story, I'd never admit to blowing up the nose because I'd think, there's you, someone who's, I can't talk about all the things I've done in life. I've never harmed women or children, but I've done a lot of things in the life that I chose to live in. But to see myself as saving someone's life, that didn't sit well with me until I got right with the Lord. And how I knew to blow up her nose, I don't know where that come from. I don't know, and I don't know why he chose me. But if you think that's coincidence, then wow.
And have you seen this girl since?
No, do you know, I wanted to, I know, I've heard things, she's got 3 more kids now, so she'd be, this was 2000 and, 2001, 2002, so 20 years, so, she's in her 30s now, the mum, she's gone to have 3 more kids, the family's still living that, but I've not gone and, it's done, I don't need to do all that. But there was a time when I first come out that I would have. Now I just lay at bed. But it was in the paper. Baby survives miracle fall. It was in the Nuremberg Recorder with an arrow from the window to the floor. The mum never got that baby back because of what happened, but she's gone on to have her family life. But I've always thought it'd be nice. Did she see me? The most thought was, did she see me, and then, or did she just, and not to say that it's wrong, whatever. She was a baby herself.
Yeah.
But what I'd like, what would be so beautiful for me, is if she didn't see me, is to tell her I was there.
Yeah.
And what the impact of that, because that stayed with me. It's still today. That can make me very emotional at times. Yeah. But and just even today, God, at 49, God's gone out. And now's the time. You're ready to have a child. Prison's life's behind you. That's all dealt and dealt. I'm never going to prison again by the grace of God. As long as I keep following God, I will never go to prison again. And I'm going to have a child of my own, and that's beautiful. That's God just sealing it for me, saying, look, now I can trust you. And not a father or mother's will. This is God's will. This is God's child's first, foremost, isn't
it? Guess I was going to say, finally to end, just tell us a bit about what you do in the community in terms of the boxing. I get involved where I can. I like to work with men who've had a similar life to me. And if they're struggling in addictions, and I work an AA program, a program for Alcoholics Anonymous. I set a meeting up, and which we've got about 70 people come in Bethnal Green. I try and be a bit. I'm active in my community by putting myself, by being kind of a regular person. So for the youngsters, or for older people, or for families, or whoever it is, whoever the Lord puts in front of me, I try and have to be a positive role model. I'm always out and about on my bike, and if there's anything going, and I talk to people who society, people at risk of social exclusion. I'm drawn to them. I'm drawn to everyone. This is where I live. This is where I took everything from. So this is where I give back. And whoever God puts in front of me, I'm willing to help. I'm willing to do whatever I can do. I'm not perfect, far from it. I'm no Bible basher or nothing like that. But I love the Lord with all my heart, and I share that to people. And people don't laugh at me when I go in with a gang of Muslim kids all doing poppers, smoking the old balloons in the park, and I go over to them and I say to them, look, there's a way out of here. You don't need to be doing that. That is nonsense. What you think that's giving you is an illusion. It's from the devil. They don't laugh and say, go and clear off. They listen. I've prayed with them. I met a lad the other day with all his mates, all road boys, and we got on. He said, pray for my mate, and they all laughed at him. They said his dad has walked out and left his family, and they all laughed. And I looked at him, and his heart was broken, but he didn't want to show that. So I was having a chat, and he went, can we go and have a talk? There's a 17, 18-year-old Asian lad, in Shadwell, all up to naughtiness. And I said, come on in, we'll go, and we started praying in it. And I told him that I pray to Jesus. That's my go-to guy, and whatever God you believe in, there's only one God. He said, I know that. I said, we all share the same God, no matter where you're from. God is love and all that. He said, yeah, I know that. And he said, I just want my dad back. Even that hurts. But that's the impact you have, isn't it? Just giving hope, shining light to people. I've been consistently happy for 2 years. I'm telling you. I wake up every morning with a smile, and I go to bed with a smile for the last 2 years. Now, this is someone who was absolutely miserable for most of his life. I thought happiness was being drunk or high on drugs. But, total nonsense. Today with the Lord, and it's love for me. The more I go and love, the courage to be obedient to change, and drop the ego and the pride, and because it's not attractive. People are attracted to the ego and pride, but that's there's many worlds in this world. Let them get on with it, and I'm only interested in people who are broken, and if you're not sick, you don't need a doctor, do you? And I'm broken, and I need fixing, and
He's the number one craftsman. He can put anyone back together, you know, and he's done it. He held his hand out when no one else did. You know, he went crash like that, and I took it. You know, and he's never left my side since then. Everything he gives me, even to this, to being a father, you know, without all the other stuff that I go out and do, just the fact that, you know, I'm going to have a family of my own, which I thought, you know, that would pass me by. All my mates were doing it in their 20s, you know, and you know, you know, I'm going to be a granddad. I'm going to be a dad while I'm a granddad. That's beautiful, man. I'll be like, but that's good because I've lived my life, and whatever, you know, I was talking earlier to someone and I was saying, it's like, when I was in that madness, if God would have revealed himself to me again, like he did when I was 4, yeah, if the Lord would have revealed himself, I would have hid. I would have run away because I was so full of shame. You know, when I used to take drugs or drink or fight, I used to take my cross off or turn it around, yeah, thinking, well, at least he can't see. Absolute nonsense. Do you know what I mean? And today, you know, death doesn't fear me. How it does maybe a lot of people, because death used to fear me before. Yeah, I was frightened of dying. You know, today I'm not. And if the Lord revealed himself to me today, I would look at him, knowing all the rottenness that I've done throughout my life, yeah, all the chaos I've caused, all the misery and the carnage, I would look at him and I would plead my forgiveness with him. I would not hide away from it. And from doing that, if I'm willing to do that, and if I believe, my faith tells me that is what I will do, yeah, how can I not? How would anyone in this world, in body, yeah, ever be able to turn my head again? No, it'd be impossible. You know, I don't fear God, so I definitely don't fear man. Don't worry about that. You know, and that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Thank you so much.
That's it.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.